Welcome back to the Enduring Minds podcast. I'm your host, Evan Birch, along with my co-host, Jason Bahamundi. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I made it back from the Taylor Swift premiere. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Yeah, your dancing gives it away. I knew it was you all along, all along. We have an amazing episode here today. As you know, we explore the intersection of endurance sports and mental health. And we have a guest, Zach Friedley, who is the founder of Born to Adapt. He is an adaptive trail runner. And Born to Adapt is an organization that has a series of races as well as projects that really push for the inclusion of adaptive athletes in the trail and ultra world. So rather than giving a whole diatribe of Zach, I always like our guests to be able to give their own introduction. So let's bring Zach on for the next interview.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey Zach, good to see you today. How's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, I can add a little bit to the intro. Appreciate the shout out to Born to Adapt, and yeah, Born to Adapt is getting people with disabilities out on the trails, specifically in trail running, and we're giving people the opportunity to maybe do their first trail run all the way to this summer. We had our first athlete from Born to Adapt race OCC at UTMB. So yeah, basically you choose your own adventure with Born to Adapt and dream anything you want to do, and that's basically what Born to Adapt is. And I'm just grateful to be able to share about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're grateful to have you here and be able to share about it. I always like to start the episode. We've already talked about, okay, what you do, but I like to start the podcast off with who is Zach? So aside from the things that you do, who is Zach?
I am a friend, a husband, a entrepreneur, a person that sees the world differently than a lot of people, and I'm trying to bring that to life and just shifting the paradigm for disabled people everywhere, actually. And I'm just a person that likes to be chill most of the time, even though I do a sport that's intense.
I'm going to ask you this question because I listened to the previous Enduring Minds podcast episode where Evan asked Jason Evans that question. And he started out with uncle, and then a couple of other things after that. And it struck me, and you started with friend, and that struck me too. And I'm wondering if we ask you that same question tomorrow, based on what you will have just done, does it start with husband, entrepreneur, friend, or entrepreneur? Is it based on something that you've just done that friend was the word that came out first?
I feel like my friend hat is always on. I had some text conversations with friends. I have friends all over the world. And I feel like I'm a friend that people lean into when they're down or they lean into when they're excited. And it's just something that I take very intentionally to show up as the best person I can for all my friends, especially in today's world.
So then who shows up for you? If you're always there for everybody else,
Yeah.
who shows up?
I got a community of people that we can call them healers, mentors, that are behind the scenes that I get to lean into. So I get to show up in the world in my best self. So there's a team of people that I can rely on and that I put into my busy schedule to make sure that I'm able to check in with these people. And actually, I'm doing it later today. I'm hopping into a hot springs for 2 days. No email, no phone. Just kind of checking out and doing some stuff on Sunday just to take care of myself so I can keep showing up in the world and not have a burnout. It's super important, I think, to regulate things for yourself.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Having my own kind of breath work journey with everything that I've experienced and getting my certification in it, so I can 100% relate to that self care and that probably being, I would say, as an athlete, probably one of the most important things that I experience on a regular basis that can keep me grounded in order to coach the athletes that I coach as well too. So I want to get into the inclusion part of the ultra and trail world. I know Born to Adapt is very much a organization that champions inclusion within the sport. Everybody has a different definition of inclusion. What is your definition of inclusion within Born to Adapt and your own personal life.
Yeah, my definition of inclusion is basically where no one feels left out. Like if you're signing up for a race, you see yourself represented in the race registration. I mean, simple stuff as in, if you're a man, woman, non-binary, are you disabled? Like basically intaking people and collecting data from these people shows that this place is for you, rather than going up to a race and signing up and being like, oh, well, didn't see my thing here. So now I have to go email somebody and figure out if this race can I come here? And a lot of people maybe don't understand that, but imagine going to a race sign up as a man or woman and you just see like male and there's no mark for female. You would wonder if, well, do females run here? Same thing with a disabled athlete is if you don't see that represented in a registration, you're going to think that maybe this isn't for me. And you might have even already come into this space a little hesitant anyways, because it can be scary as a disabled athlete venturing into a new arena. And then you get to the arena and you're not even sure if there's a door made for you. So inclusion is building it with the intent in mind for everyone.
What's one thing that race directors can do to support that?
I think just kind of see how they're intaking people, see the website, like who are they wanting to come to the race? Like when they're intending to come up with a new race, let's say they're doing a 50 mile, like who do you want to be there? And hopefully it's everyone. And if it is everyone, how are you conveying that message to the world? Are you showing images of people of all different ethnicities, backgrounds, everything? Like, I feel like if you see something out there, if you don't see yourself in something, how are you going to be that? And yeah, I mean, if you're showing people in wheelchairs, people with blades, all these disabilities, you're going to have those people showing up. If you're only showing white guys and you're wondering why only white guys are coming to your race, it might be because, you're only speaking to that audience.
We had a panel discussion for our Everyday Athlete Clubhouse in mid-September, and it was about inclusion in endurance sports. And I had a gay Black man, a non-binary athlete, and a blind athlete on the panel. And we had this discussion. And one of the things I asked the non-binary athlete, Rach McBride, because they have 2 master's degrees in words I can't even pronounce. So I can imagine the subject studying was very difficult. They're a cellist. They are a world champion 70.3 triathlete, as well as a world champion at gravel cycling. And I asked them, when you go to the race registration page and non-binary is not in the drop down, does it make you feel like all of your accomplishments in outside of this space all of a sudden don't matter because you're not being seen? And so I want to ask you that same question with all of the things that you have done in your life. If you go to a race registration and disabled athlete is not on the page for you to check, or they don't have a category for it, like internally, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel like I'm actually out of this race? I'm going to go find one that actually accepts me for me?
It's a good question. So for me, for the longest time, I signed up for races and that was never there. And I never thought about it ever. Right. Because I wanted to race so bad. I wanted to be in UTMB. I wanted to do all these epic trail races around the world. Well, last year I had this wild idea to sign up for the New York City Marathon. I was like, this is the biggest race in the world. Maybe we could go there. I could race and it would raise awareness around Born to Adapt and trail running and para athletes. So let's go do it. So I started to seek out how to sign up and I went to their race registration. And it was the first time I've ever been intaked where I was like, are you an athlete with a disability? Yes. And then it had this drop down of all sorts of stuff. And I found my specific disability, which was like kind of crazy. And then it had more questions and it was like, oh, these are all the things you get with athletes with disabilities. And then I signed up and then I got an email that basically mapped out the whole experience for an athlete with disability. And it changed my entire perception of what is possible, because it did make me feel like, wow, this race intentionally wants me here. They have systems built out, their support built out. they're looking for people like me. So then now in trail running, I have a way higher standard, and I bring it up a lot, of like, hey, if trail running is the most inclusive sport in the world, why is the New York City Marathon way above anything that we're doing in this space? So yeah, I mean, it changed it for me, and maybe that was the reason why I needed to go race there, is to up my expectations for trail running. And now when I'm on panels and talking to UTMB and other organizations, I'm like, let's be about it. We always talk about how inclusive we are. I'm here to tell you that marathon running is more inclusive, and let's change it. I mean, trail running is so new and so like in its infant stages that we can actually bake in things that are going to support it later on down the road before it gets too political and organizations are, overhauling things. So I think trail running's in a great position to change how it's done. And I got to give props to the New York City Marathon for changing how I felt. I mean, it was crazy. I won't forget. I like got up and was like telling my wife, "You'll never believe this experience I just had. This is crazy. I didn't even know this could exist." So it's super important how you intake an athlete.
The follow-up question to that is, and this was also on the panel discussion, is I want to do everything all at once. Like I'm ready, willing, and able with all the energy to change everything today. And clearly that isn't happening. And so it's slow progress. Give me your mindset about slow progress. Are you the person who's like, well, every step forward is progress, as opposed to I'm going to leap 10 steps forward and that to me is progress?
Yeah, I think progress is a very interesting thing to dissect. And I think sometimes we can't see progress because we're so in it and so close. You're making progress every day towards your goals, whether it's 0.01% or, maybe you want to go to 10%. But as long as you show up every day and start to be, and you're consistent and you are just one step in front of the other, I'm often reminded Rome wasn't built in a day. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. But it's also nice sometimes to take a step back and see where you started and see where you're at and look at the distance you've covered. And this year it happened for me, with UTMB. It was the first time we had 60 athletes with disability towing the line in Chamonix this past August. And in 2022, which wasn't that long ago, there was one documented athlete with a disability there. There could have been more, but they weren't like public about it. So from going from 1 to 60 in 3 years is huge progress. So yeah, I think in the space that I'm working in, progress is happening, and sometimes it's going slower than I would like, but there is progress being made.
Yeah, and I think, with Born to Adapt and obviously working with the brands that you work with, being an on athlete, as well as I'm going to assume precision fuel and hydration based on the hat, perhaps.
And Fractal, who makes the
Yeah,
hat?
yeah, there you go. Just repping it. I love it. The ability to have that exposure to put yourself in the position of, you're this role model for all of these younger individuals who didn't have, as you're talking about in 2022, one athlete, they didn't have anybody to look towards. So I would imagine that young Zach was probably in that same position. You didn't have the athlete or
No.
the person to look towards in this space. So I guess there's two questions in this. So maybe just describe for us, your like beginning into the trail space, being an adaptive athlete, and also what it means for you to now be that visual for maybe the thing that you didn't have that you get to be for all these young athletes, which I'm assuming, again, the one that came to UTMB this year, I heard the whole story about how you got him there, which is absolutely incredible. So maybe just touch on those two things. I would love to hear
Yeah.
it.
So you said something that I got to bring up. So when I was a kid, young Zach, I wasn't around disabled athletes. Didn't even use the word. The word disabled wasn't allowed in my house. It was a bad word. And I wasn't around another disabled athlete until my 20s. Um, so yeah, I didn't even know it existed. So now in today's world where visibility matters, having para athletes in events is super important. And essentially how I do my work is who does like the 8th grade version of myself, what kind of person does that guy need that wasn't there? And that's how I show up in my life. And it makes it super easy because I think about that version of myself often, and therefore I'm able to show up in that capacity all over the world for people that I'll never know, and some of them I do know, like Yahir, who came to UTMB this summer, 20-year-old kid that I met when he was 17 years old. And I was training for UTMB, and he'd never seen a person with a blade running on trails. And he himself had just gotten his first blade. And he literally asked me what I was doing. And I'm like, oh, I'm training for this event, and showed him a picture of UTMB. And he was like, I didn't know this existed. How do I do this? And that's what started our connection. And the next thing you know, 3 years later, he's at the start line of OCC, crushing it as a 20-year-old. And that was only made possible because of the visibility that On has given me and allowing me to race in all these events over the world. And it just, for me, you can't be what you can't see. And if you can't see somebody doing something that looks like you, I mean, how the hell are you ever going to do it? So it's super important to have that kind of visibility for adaptive athletes in so many different capacities. What was the other question you had?
I'm going to I just want to touch on the one thing you just said. So if you can't be what you can't see, how did you do it?
Man, I'm a big dreamer, and I went through a life spiritual awakening, if you want to call it that, where I was just super stoked to have a human body, and I had a blade, and I lived in this magical place in Northern California, and I was just running around the trails, not even knowing trail running was even a thing. But I've identified strongly as an athlete my entire life since I was a little kid, and just really wanted to push my body to the limits. And luckily, one time YouTube popped up, and I saw stuff about trail running, and then started doing deep dives on, man, do people with blades even do this? And then had the right people around me that were like, go for it, do it. The sport needs you. And the next thing you know, I'm signing up for trail races, getting on podcasts with race directors, complaining that I haven't ever seen a para athlete at one of these races. And then that guy was like, yo, why don't you be the person that makes the events for these athletes? And just kind of listening to the universe telling me different things to follow and being in tune, and yeah, just kind of going with what makes me feel good. And luckily it all worked out. And now, yeah, I get to continue to do this.
Evan, you had a second question for Zach in that first. Do you remember it?
I don't remember it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep on that side of you can't be what you can't see. When I launched this business 5 years ago, I was told by a Black runner, representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear it all the time, right? It's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. And it wasn't until recently that it really hit home to me, because athletes like yourself are talking about it more. And you used or Evan used the word role model. And so role model and representation matters. And like these 4 words are bouncing around in my head. And it made me think, how do you feel being called a role model to be able to represent disabled athletes, para athletes out there? Like, is there pressure? Do you even feel the pressure, or is it, I'm just doing this and I'm connecting with people?
I don't know if I feel pressure, but I definitely take a great honor in being able to be that person. For the longest time in my life, I dreamed of being, I don't know, important. When you're a kid and you're growing up with a disability around people with no disability, and like in my sport back in the day was wrestling, and I was getting smashed every day in practice, showing up to practice. I wasn't like a world beater, but I wanted to be, and I wanted to make an impact. And wrestling was a really tough sport for me to make an impact. But I feel like that dream was always there. And now as an adult, it's like an honor to be in that position, and to show up in these spaces and talk about these things and try to make a change. And, I think having different people show up in my life. The first athlete to ever sign up for Born to Adapt was Sean Wall, who was like a fourth grader in a wheelchair. And he like proved to me that this was worth, like, I was onto something. So I've had people like him show up into my life, where like maybe he would think of me as like a mentor or a role model, but he's just the same, like it's equally charged. And yeah, I take it very serious. I don't feel the pressure, but it's something that I'm passionate about. It's hard for me to turn off these thoughts and what can we do. So I often have to remind myself to take time for myself, and like I don't have to figure anything out tomorrow or Friday, but that's just passion. I think it's cool that the passion flows through me and I'm able to make a small difference.
I think the idea of taking time for yourself is so important. So again, I started this business 5 years ago to prove, this is the vision and mission of Run Try Bike, is to prove that there's a spot at the starting line for everybody and everybody. And I too take it seriously. And I have sleepless nights. Did we talk enough about adaptive athletes this month? Did we talk enough about Black athletes this month? Like it keeps me up at night oftentimes. And so kudos to you for taking that time off. And before I turn it back to Evan, I want to ask you this question, because I felt like this came up in the panel discussion I had with the blind athlete who set the course record for adaptive athletes at the Vermont 100 this past year, Dr. Allison Roy. And it made me think to myself, and I want to ask you this question, like when somebody sees that you're an adaptive athlete and their reaction is like, wow, you did it, right?
Mhm.
Does that diminish the accomplishment? Because you're like, I'm an athlete like you, man. Like, give me kudos. I did the hard thing just like you did the hard thing.
This is a good one. So my response to this, I don't speak for every disabled person on the planet, and everybody's going to have a unique experience, and everybody's experience is valid. Me, I was born this way. I never had anything else that I know. Another person maybe lost their leg 2 years ago, and they were going through immense trauma, so they're showing up a little bit different. But for me personally, and I'm in a lot of big races out there, and I race a lot, and I kind of have it. It's just background noise at this point. I don't even really. It happens so much in a race that, imagine 1,000 people telling you hi. It's really hard to like look at all those 1,000 people in the eye and like register all of it. So for me, it's just background noise, and I know the intention comes from somewhere good. It's not like somebody is saying something to be smirky or rude. So I always take into account what's the intention behind their thing. They're trying to connect with me. This is their entry, and it's an opportunity for me, if I engage, to maybe share what I'm sharing with you guys now. Like, hey, like this is cool for me, but maybe the next person down the road, you're kind of offending.
Right.
So I sometimes have those conversations with people. Sometimes it's background noise. I have friends that it super offends them big time. And just interesting that everybody has a different experience with it. So if people are listening, what's your intent behind what you're saying? And maybe there's a different way to go about it. And it's really interesting. Different places of the world have a different response. Like in Europe, like when I'm racing Sears Zainal, nobody is saying that to me. And to be honest, it's like the opposite. People are pretty cutthroat, maybe like, oh, what are you doing out here, man? And yeah, I mean, it's funny how different places of the world handle it differently. The coolest places, New Zealand, those people are super dope there and very welcoming and encouraging. But yeah, that's a good question. I think it doesn't bother me, but it definitely bothers people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like what you said, Zach, about being born with it versus it happening to somebody who did have an able body
Yeah.
for a period of time. I think that, perspective is everything. We talk about it all the time. And I know that's probably on Jason's tongue just thinking about it. It's like, it's totally a matter of perspective. And I think if you can sometimes like put yourself in their shoes and
Yep.
ask yourself, like, is that what I would want to hear right now?
Totally.
How would I feel if somebody asked me that? And I think sometimes you have to do that. You have to, be respectful, but at the same time, sometimes things can just go unsaid, and that's okay too.
Totally. And
Um,
one quick thing, a lot of people will ask, how did you lose your leg? And for me, again, I was born this way, no big deal. But when people ask another person that they don't even know, hey, how'd you lose your leg? You may be asking this person, hey, can you tell me about the worst day of your life? I don't know
right.
you, but I need to know this. And then ask yourself, like, why do you need to know this? But again, maybe that person's trying to connect because their son lost their leg, or their someone they know is an amputee. So people just want to connect, and I think um, that's at the base what they want to do. And sometimes they come across in a way that's super like a piece of glass breaking.
I think that's why we have these conversations, though, Zach, is because when people hear this, and let's say that their family member did lose a leg,
Yeah,
instead of coming out and saying, "How did you lose your leg?" they would now say, "My son has lost his leg
totally.
because of X. How did you lose your?" And sort of pull down that attacking style and be more of a welcoming style, so that we
Yeah.
can relate and connect to each other.
I have a thing that I do with people in public, like at a grocery store. If somebody's like, "Oh, hey, how'd you lose your leg?" And I'm like, "Oh, interesting. What's got you curious about that?" And if they're just like, "Well, I don't know. I'm just a nosy person," then I kind of make light of that. Or if they're like, "Oh, well, my neighbor lost his leg, or my grandpa," then that's the connection, and then I can have a conversation. But sometimes people are just like, "I don't know why I want to know."
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
just like,
it's
"Well, that's interesting."
I like that you turn it back towards them, because then
Yeah,
that makes them have to
great
reflect
reflex,
upon like
big time.
Yeah.
what they're thinking and feeling, and it's like I mean, I'm learning a lot over these last number of years going through my own stuff of like
Yeah.
your feelings are your responsibility. So if that makes you feel uncomfortable because now somebody's asking you why you want to know, and you're like,
Totally.
I probably don't need to know, and I just was, you know,
I've seen all
nosy.
sorts of reactions, people's faces, where they're like, you can see the reflection happening. They're like, "Oh shit, why do I want to know this?"
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I just think if somebody were to ask me, like, how did you get your PTSD? I'm like, do you really want to know?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I don't think you really want to know why I ended up with it. But again, it's not visible, right? And I think
totally.
that's the other thing that I noticed the difference too. And kind of I want to touch on the mental aspect of me being an able-bodied athlete, and we talk about the mental game within trail and ultra running, and how you have to have like a solid mental game. My coach, I think Ray Zahab, um, Zach, but his quote was like, ultra running is 90% mental, the other 10% is in your head.
Hmm.
And I think for me, like the mental game is very, I have to be strong for sure. But I would imagine as an adaptive athlete, somebody who now has not only, maybe the mental game, but now you're physically having to challenge yourself in a way that nobody's put themselves into that arena before. How does that, I guess, what do you think the difference would be between your mental game and say my mental game, with managing not only the mental and physical at the same time on top of it?
Man, yeah. So as a para athlete, we're managing, like, let's say you're going into a trail race, you're managing tons of stuff, right? Um, as a non-disabled runner. And you throw somebody like me in the game, we're managing the same stuff, but then maybe 20 other things at the same time. And for me, I just know going into it that obviously I think I'm drawn to that aspect of it, like figuring out, finding solutions in real time, and problem solving and building the puzzle piece. And for me, I think at this stage in my career of running, I absolutely love running. It brings me a ton of joy. I love training. Obviously, I love racing, but I think I just love looking at my training schedule and seeing what runs I have this week and what kind of workouts are we doing in those runs. So my mental game is like evolved over time. Whereas like in my 20s, my training was way different. It was like ego based. I want to crush people. I want to be the best in the world. I want a Paralympic gold medal, or everything is shitty, So like my mental game has evolved, and I feel like I come at things less pressurized, less tension in my body, which allows me to have less injuries. kind of be in what you may have heard as like the flow. And it's kind of based by love for myself, love for other people, love for the experiences that I get to have, rather than like a lack or approving or I'll show you, but I had to go through all that other stuff to get to this point, and there's not a part of the journey that's like wrong or right. It's just kind of all kind of part of it. I feel like I meet people that have a process that's different than mine, and it doesn't mean it's like wrong. It's just that's where they're at their journey. And a lot of times I can relate at these different stages. And for me, if we're looking at data at where I'm at now and the way I'm training now, I have way better results than I did at 25 when I was like just a pissed off kid trying to make it in the world,
Yeah, I like to call it the running versus, so there's the ego running,
Yep,
and then there's some sort of switch that happens, and it's happened for me now, of now you're running from your soul. Like you're
totally.
talking about that like spiritual, like I'm just like
Yep,
every step I'm so grateful that I'm get to be out here. And I think that's such a beautiful switch when you can make that switch, because at that point you're not chasing anybody. If you show up and you have your best day and your best day means that you're ahead of the person on the podium, then great. But
yep.
that's not the driver anymore.
You're speaking my language, soul,
Yeah.
man. Like just
Yeah.
being a soulful person in everything I do. I think that could be the best compliment if someone's like, "Oh yeah, what a soulful guy." I would be like, "Yes, I've made
Mhm.
it."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I want to preface the question by giving you my example. So, the pivot that we're talking about here in accepting the results for what they are. I know for me, a large part of that was now accepting who I was as a person, which a lot of it started when I started this company in the end of 2020, 2021, when I started talking to other athletes and hearing their stories. And I was like, okay, and vision started to change. But I would say probably in the last 12 to 18 months, starting this podcast with Evan and being open and honest and vulnerable and sharing who I am with people. And then recently, leaning more into telling the stories of me being a Puerto Rican kid growing up in the Bronx who got moved into white suburbia, and realizing like all of the trauma that came from that move, and now being able to share that. And that has really been sort of the tipping point for me to accept me for who I am. And so whatever the race results are, the race results are, it doesn't define who I am. Do you have a tipping point in when that mindset switched for you?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Do you
I
care
have
to share
totally.
it?
Nope. No, no, seriously. That's a very important moment in my life that I love to share. So when I was 30 years old, I grew up in the Midwest, a little small town called Kearney, Missouri. Grew up there. The biggest thing we had in our town when I was growing up there was a John Deere dealership for tractors. So we were like a farm community and wasn't that diverse at all, And that was just like what home was, and I loved it. And when I was 29, almost turned 30, there was just this like internal thing where I was like, what else is out in the world that I haven't experienced? Like, what is success? I know what people around me say is success, but what do other people have to say about success? So I left my hometown to go on a vision quest of finding purpose, and like basically sold my house, quit my job, got rid of all my shit. I didn't have anything, everything that fit in a suitcase. That's what I left with. And I had tons of stuff at 30 years old. And I went to Philadelphia. I was a nanny to these two girls that had just lost their mom. So there was a big purpose there to show up for them every day while they were grieving, and taking care of them. And then I found my way to California and worked on a farm all summer, and then found my way down to Mendocino, California, and started to kind of integrate in that community. And then I found this like healer. His name's Fred Midtower. He does transformational body work, somatic work, and he's been doing it for over 50 years. And I ended up in his house doing work with him and kind of peeling back these different layers of, nobody gave me permission to be like, oh yeah, you were a kid born with a disability, and life was maybe a little challenging. when I was a kid, I just kind of sucked it up and moved on. And that's what you did. Nobody gave a shit that you were disabled. That's what my parents said. They had tough love, man. My parents gave me tough love so I could survive, um, which ended up helping me out now in my life. But wasn't to say that there wasn't trauma as a kid, and getting to peel back those layers and let go of those pieces and those parts just really allowed me to have more capacity to love myself, love other people, be grateful for where I'm at in my life, and get to connect with people over their traumas. Because there's one thing that we all have in common as being a human being is we've all experienced trauma in some shape or form. And I think at some point in life, we all reach a point where we can meet those traumas and forgive those things and let those pieces go. So yeah, I think pivotal for me was, going to California, seeing a different kind of life and meeting people that could help me heal those pieces of myself that I didn't even know needed healing. Like at the time, I had no idea, like that trauma existed.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder where Zach goes when the shit hits the fan mentally. Because I know, like for myself, for the last few days, I've been on the verge of burnout with being an entrepreneur, being a adjunct lecturer for 2 universities, and like it just things kept piling up. And I saw on the calendar this morning the reminder that we were going to have this discussion. And that for me was, okay, I'm going to be able to talk about my vulnerabilities and my honesty and my openness while also hearing somebody else share that stuff back at me. And I know Evan's going to share it too. And so that's kind of where I went this morning when the shit was hitting the fan, being like, I'm going to have an opportunity to have a great conversation, and things perked up. And so I'm guessing, I don't know, please correct me, that when the shit hits the fan, you start thinking about, leaving the hometown, going to California. Like, I've already done a lot of hard things. Like,
Mhm.
I can do this too.
Totally. I mean, once you implode your life and you find it again, I mean, you kind of don't get scared of those things, and you kind of take things as they come, and there's not any like devastating blows. And I feel like it's an ebb and flow. There's good days, there's bad days, and we just hope that there's more good than bad. And yeah, you just kind of take it day to day, and when you're showing up, you're getting to have conversations with people like us in this conversation, and we're learning things and getting insights and hearing about each other's vulnerabilities and things. And I think that is, yeah, I mean, when shit hits the fan now, it's like we have people like us that we can count on.
Yeah. I recently tore my ligament in my ankle in June.
Oh yeah,
And I've been out for probably about 4 months now, just getting back into a little bit of normalcy. And
that was in the Tahoe 200, right?
yeah, 10 kilometers in. Yeah, it was a
Man,
beautiful timing. But I'm a firm believer that the universe is going to give you what you need.
totally.
And, I was able to get through a few other things through the summer, doing an upgrading course, starting a master's program in the fall. And I'm just curious from your perspective when it comes to injury. I'm sure you're just like all of us, like just like trauma, we've all been injured in some way, shape, or form. What is your philosophy on when you get injured? How do you manage? Are you the type of person that says like I can't do anything and I'm gonna just sit and wallow in my despair? Or are you the type of person who's like, okay, I can't run on my ankle now, but what can I do?
Yeah, I mean,
Where do you lean?
so earlier this year, I had a foot injury that I don't know if I talked about publicly very often, but January, February, March, April, I was not able to run, which is insane for a runner, someone that has races built out. I have race bonuses. I make money running. So it was stressful. And it was the first time in a while that I feel like my body was injured. And I do have a prosthetic too, and my prosthetic sometimes breaks or isn't performing well, and I can't run. But in my mind, that's not necessarily an injury, but it still prevents me from running. But the foot thing that I had, that was my body just stopped working, and it was frustrating. And it was something that I apparently needed to have happen. And just to give you guys a thing, I didn't have a stress fracture, but I was wearing a super shoe because I just run the New York City Marathon. I was like, damn, this super shoe is sick. And I got my blade dialed in for it, and I was going to run these flat road things in the super shoe. And I ran in it too much, and my foot stressed out. And having one foot, it's insane to be like, oh, you need to take it easy on your one foot. Well, I'm like, dude, I can't just be in a wheelchair. Like, how the hell am I going to do this? So it was a very tricky process, but it allowed me to kind of reflect on the things that I do to my body. And I I'm around a lot of incredible athletes all the time, and we kind of just shrug off 100 milers or 200 like, oh yeah, like another day in the mountains. But in reality, that is like super stressful on our bodies. And it kind of made me reflect on what I do to my body, how do I take care of my body, and just being more dialed in and being more appreciative of the stress that I do put my body through. And during that time, I really leaned into my meditation practice that sometimes I let go of. I wasn't able to run, but in some of my meditations, I was actually running trails that I've been on in my mind and keeping my mind sharp. But just doing all these other little things that are like my tools that I often forget about, that it's not all about being physical all the time, that there's all these other things that I can do when my body needs rest. And my body needed rest. I gave it rest. I did change another couple of things. I went low carb, which revolutionized my rest of the year after my injury. But yeah, I think the injury allows us to kind of reflect on where we're at. Slowing down sometimes is what we need to speed up later on. And let's grab a hold of these other tools that we have that sometimes we forget. And for me, it was meditation and the breath work, the things that I don't necessarily need a leg performing to do. And yeah, I think the universe delivers when you need that. You puts you in a position. It's like, what are you going to do here, man? Are
Yeah,
you going to feel sorry for yourself, or are you going to prevail and work on these other things that need the the like muscle workouts? The meditation for me is like, I can go and run all these miles, but how can I do the same thing for my meditation? How can I train that? So that's what I did. And
yeah,
luckily, my wife is very encouraging in that. The people I have around me, I mean, I struggled. I was like, I need to run, and my wife is like, why don't you do this or that? I'm like, man, that's a good idea. So
mhm.
I needed reminding.
Yeah. I had a month of feeling all the feels of, I can't do anything right now, like in the sense of, yes, I did a little bit of breath work and other things, but I do recognize that you have to feel it sometimes. Like in order to move through it, you have to recognize what that is. You can't just stuff it down. That doesn't get you anywhere. So I had
Totally.
to feel it, and then I doubled down on strength. I'm like, what's the number one thing that most runners and athletes who are spending as much miles as we do running, what do they let go of? Strength.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come back by the time my ankle is ready, and I'm going to be the strongest I've been to support everything else that I know that my body is capable of now.
Totally.
And like you said, the universe is going to give you what you need, but what you didn't realize that you needed, I think.
Totally, man. It serves it up sometimes, and you're like, damn, this is
Yeah.
not what I wanted,
Hmm.
but here we are, and
Yeah.
this must be what I need.
Yeah.
I wrote down this question because you said it right at the beginning of your answer. I'm not sure that I even talked about this publicly, this injury with your foot. And it made me wonder, why not? Right? We're talking about representation matters, and maybe there's an injured person out there that needed to hear and see your story. And I want to preface this also by saying it is not your responsibility to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
But it just made me wonder why you would not talk about that publicly.
So I think when I said publicly, I didn't make a lot of content around it. Everybody I would run into, I would be like, "Yo, I can't run. I'm injured." Went to New Zealand, supposed to race Tarawera, hosted a Born to Adapt there. It's like, "Yo, guys can't run. Zach is chilling, doing this stuff." And I think for me, when it comes to like content and sharing, there's pieces of my life that I don't want to be 24/7 available, and
Yep.
there's certain things Like a lot of my practices that I do, like we're having a conversation now and this is going to be online and it makes sense, but like I don't really share that, I go up and do body work with Fred, or I go to a hot springs and disconnect and meditate. Like there's just pieces of me that are private. But I talk about it when it's appropriate and when it comes up. I just don't make intentional content around it, at least right now. I mean, things are always evolving, and I'm actually in the next few days gonna take some time and reimagine what my content is. And who knows, maybe I am gonna make different kinds of content, but it's a ebb and flow with what do you share, what don't you share, what are private moments, what are public moments, especially in my position of who I am, and it's always evolving and moving and whatnot. I think that's a great question. Like why didn't I share? Maybe I wasn't wanting to make it real. I don't know. Like I felt like if there was all this energy behind, oh, Zach's injured, that maybe the injury would last longer. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I didn't
Right.
want to put a lot of energy into it, I think.
I'm with you too, because I also think that the public believes that everything that they see is everything that's going on in your life.
Yeah,
And it's like,
totally.
no, this is literally a snippet in a moment of a day, of a month, of a year, of a
Yeah,
lifetime.
totally.
And I think more people need to hear what you just said, which is I don't share everything publicly. There are some things that stay behind this curtain because it's for me.
Yeah,
And I think more and more people need to express that so
yeah,
that people don't just make assumptions that, oh, everything must be going swimmingly. Like, no, man, like my head is swimming with all kinds of stuff. It's not,
yeah,
unicorns and rainbows 24/7.
totally. The content thing is always tricky to me because a lot of times I want to make content, I want to share things, but at the same time I want to be present, and I have a hard time
Mhm.
being present, but also thinking like, oh, what kind of content am I making? But I know for me, I'm seeking a better balance, and I'm always wanting to share things that are going to be impactful. And a lot of times I don't even realize I have a piece of information that could be impactful until someone's like, dude, you got to share this. This is like huge. And I'm like, shit, I forget.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's something that I like to work on. Like, what is my relationship with what I share? Can I share more? Do I want to share more? How does it make me feel? So I don't have like a set rule that this is it. It's always evolving, and I'm excited for it to evolve. And I think that's just kind of life. How I felt last year is different than this year, and that's kind of cool.
I think it's awesome because you're not making one thing your identity. Because I think when people do that, that immediately is the lighting of the fuse to burnout, right?
Totally.
If you make one thing your entire identity, and today, those who are subscribed to our newsletter, we're recording this on October 15th, got a newsletter this morning that basically said, I used to be, but now I am. I used to be, but now I am. And it was talking about how I have evolved into being what some people will call a content creator, but I call it a feelings creator. Like I want to create feelings in you so that
Totally.
when I ask you a question, and you did it for me already. So thank you in advance for saying that's a really good question to me. That's my goal in every podcast we do is to have the guest say that's a really good question because it created a feeling in you. And so I
Cool.
don't feel the need to have to record everything that I'm doing in life.
Yeah, dude.
I want to create the thing that's going to make somebody go, damn, I could do that too.
Yep.
Something like that.
You're evoking emotions and feelings. That's cool.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the goal. That's for me, that's the content creation, right? The feelings creation.
Totally.
There, there's something about doing things in silence and then showing up like really loudly. And I think,
Totally.
for me, like I turned my Strava off for the last 2 years. Nobody can see
Ah,
my activities, nobody can see anything. The only things they get to see are when I race. I'll post my race activities afterwards. But then you start getting questions like, I didn't know you were training for anything. Like how much mileage are you doing? And I'm like, well, again, you're showing what you want them to see, but there's an assumption made that because they can't see it, you're not doing anything.
totally.
And I think that's just like again, I think that's the trap of whether you call it social media now. I think it's been called attention media more than anything now. It's how many many likes can you get? How many people can you get enraged with what you want to say?
Totally.
And it's going a really weird direction. But to me, like I think that's the ultimate move when you don't need that external, thumbs up,
Yeah,
kudos from everybody, and you can just act from like your own like intentions. Like we talked about intention before. And if you can have those, like you're choosing to share your content, but if you have intention behind it, it's gonna come through so much more clear for the people that are watching it, and they're gonna know. Like people can sniff out somebody who's being fake now. Like there's no doubt
totally.
about it. So I think that's what I'm hearing in this is like have some intention behind what you're putting out there,
100%.
and I think that's the important thing.
Authenticity, vulnerability, those are the key things to have the kind of interactions that we want to have.
Yeah,
Why are we afraid of that though? Right? Like if you think about it, a lot of people are posting bullshit. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. People are posting bullshit because they want to get the attention instead of conversing with people and creating connection. Like why are we so afraid of connection in today's age?
I mean, my experience, no one taught me that connection is important. I had to figure it out on my own. So I think maybe a lot of people are not there yet on their journey and they don't even know what connection is, or they're afraid of connection. I think in today's world with all the social media and all the stuff, we're being stimulated in a way that's like almost unnatural for a human being. I live in Northern California, so people go to Burning Man. Have you guys ever heard of Burning Man?
Yep.
I just read this blog where a person went to Burning Man in the like late 90s as like a journalist. And it was like their first job. And they just returned to Burning Man this year, like 25 years later. And they were like kind of appalled at where it had gone in this terms of like people are still connected to the outside world at Burning Man because there's like Starlink, there was phones out, people were making content, it was all this stuff. And they said that prior to that whole internet age and smartphone age, nobody had any of that shit, and they were just there in the desert connecting with one another. And that they were like, I wish we could go back in time and I could re-experience that, because you can't experience the world that way anymore. It's all online, it's all digital. And they were like, the one thing that they got out of it is they wish they could go back in time and experience analog. And for me, I was like, wow, that's crazy, because there's so many moments that you get to have, and you have that pressure of like, do I share this? Do I need to do the thing? And I don't think humans are really wired to consume that kind of stuff and to be like that. I mean, that could be a take that a lot of people don't agree on, but having instant access to all this information, like just boom, sometimes really fries where we are as a society.
Yeah.
We're
I'm a
experiencing emotions in ways that are like scrolling, like, oh, boom, this emotion, boom, this emotion. It's kind of unnatural.
I'm a huge baseball fan, and when I watch games on TV and I see people watching games like this, and I'm like, you're in the stadium. Like,
Crazy.
right? Put the phone down and
Yeah.
enjoy and feel the atmosphere
Yeah.
around you. Take the picture in between innings. That's cool, right? No problem there. You want to
Yeah.
share that, but you paid quite a bit of money to be in the stadium. Be in the stadium.
But that's what they think. They paid all this money. They got to capture the moment so they can share. Like it's such a thing.
Yeah,
It's like,
wild.
hopefully one day we get to evolve away from that. Probably not anytime soon, since AI is like all over the place, and it's like iPhone 17 can do this, this, and this, and now we have all these VR glasses now. Like, man.
And mind you, I'm not shitting on technology, because if it's
Yeah,
not for
totally.
technology, I'm not having this conversation with Zach and Evan, right, from
Totally.
Northern California and Canada, and I'm in
100%.
Southern LA. So I'm not crapping on technology. It's the balance of it all, like when to use it, when not to use it.
That's the key, is having balance, and I think that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, my wife and I talked about it the other day. Is there's you can get enraged by people doing it, but it's also easier and probably better for your nervous system to just be like, you know what, that's not for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea.
I don't have to have an opinion that's good or bad, or I can literally just be indifferent and go like, that's not for me.
Totally.
And like just even saying that right now, like I feel calm even just saying
Mhm.
those words because I'm like, no, it's not for me. And I think the other thing too in those situations is if you're gonna, again, like you said, pay money, go to these races, do all these things that we talk about, go to sports, do these things, like put down the phone and give it the energy that it deserves. That you like, money is energy. So you literally paid energy
Yeah,
to go and do these things. Like give it the attention and energy that it is like deserving of, and
totally.
be there, like be present. And I
It
think
just
that's the yeah.
it just came up with the thought of perspective again, right? So I'm rooting for the Mariners. They've never been to the World Series. The Blue Jays are trying to get there for the first time in 35, 40 years or something in that effect. What if the person in the stands is recording that because their family member can't go to the game,
Totally. I
right?
mean,
Like they may not be posting it on Instagram. They might be taking it back home and showing the person. So yeah, Evan, the
it's
conversation
a
you actually
it's a
had is
tool.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to end our conversations this year. We've been doing it a little bit different. We used to have a bunch of questions, but we wanted to simplify it because we're simple people. Um, what is one skill that you want to focus on for the next year that you either are already doing, something you want to pick up? What is one thing that you really want to like hone in on that is like, this is for me this year and I want to focus on it?
I really want to hone in on my creativity. I know it's kind of a vague thing, but I want to be creative in my content, maybe creative in writing, maybe creative in speaking. I want to really harness into my creativity, and be able to captivate an audience and deliver something that they can walk away with and implement in their life that benefits them. So I feel like on my journey, I've experienced a lot of different things, and I'm sure I have at least one piece of information where somebody could watch a video, hear me speak, hear me on a podcast, and be like, "Whoa, I want to go and do this thing and change something in their life, transform something." And I think I can do it, but I gotta be more tapped into my creative process, and I'm really excited to deep dive into that, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I'm smiling and quasi laughing a little bit, Zach, because I feel that. We launched the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, and we're doing a whole bunch of different things in there. And I recorded 30 podcasts in 30 days to
Oh,
test
wow.
myself. And then we just launched a new series called Party of Five. But the one that I literally just opened up is called Open Mic. It's a chance for members to come in, record a podcast in our studio just like this on their own. They don't have to have a guest, just talk and be creative in that moment, because I think that's something that people need an outlet for. And
Totally.
maybe it's recording their own podcast, maybe it's writing an article, maybe it's, going to the local playhouse and being, a set designer or something. But I have found for myself that when I tap into that creative side, and trust me when I tell you, like, and Evan knows this, like ideas fly all over the place constantly, and some of them get thrown out the window immediately, and some we allow to marinate, become a thing. That inspires me to then go and find people who are doing things and put things in motion and create that connection to ask, how did you get started with this? Because I want to get started with it too.
Interesting. I think I got started with it because I'm just kind of reflecting on the summer and the different things that I'm involved in and different opportunities that are coming up. And I just feel a little bit of like resistance. But like when I go into the creative space, it doesn't flow as easily as other areas of my life. And I just know that tapping into this creativity can be beneficial for me, but also for other people. There's just a lot of information, that I could share in a way that impacts the world. And the podcast thing you just said, like me and my friend Danny Arovich just started a podcast about para sports, para endurance sports, and I want to get more creative in that. Like, what am I showing up with, and what kind of conversations are we having? What kind of Instagram reels are we making? What if we're on a stage? How can I be creative in a way that touches somebody, in their soul? And I think the power of creativity is how you do that. I mean, that's at least that's what my intuition tells me. It's kind of all around me. A lot of the people that are in my life that are my mentors are very creative people. And, you know, like one of my mentors I've referenced on this podcast, Fred, will send me an email, and it's just very creative way of expressing words, and it makes me feel good. And I'm like, man, I want to do this. And I just know that I need to put a lot of intention into it and kind of develop that skill, just like running. You know, you don't start running a 5-minute mile the first day. Just like everything else, you got to put a lot of energy into that skill. And I want to flex that creativity muscle one day.
Yeah, I think we're all born creative. We just
Forget.
yeah, or we literally like teach ourselves out of it.
Totally, dude.
Like
The
because we
kid,
are not, yeah.
you see little
And
kids just playing, doing, you're like, man, what a life.
I
And
have 2 girls, 8 and 10,
yeah,
and seeing them literally just go downstairs and play
yeah. We need more
and
play.
have that playing creativity is such a beautiful thing, even as an adult. And Jason and I talk about it a lot. So thanks, Zach. I would like to leave the door open for you to let everybody know about your projects, where they can reach you, what's the best way to contact you, and anything else that you
Yeah.
want to leave our listeners with.
Yeah, so you can reach me online, Trailblader, on TikTok. I make some weird stuff on TikTok if you want to see me being kind of silly. And then Instagram has a lot of information for like projects we got coming up. You know, you can follow the Born to Adapt account at Born to Adapt. Things that you can look forward to in 2026. We're going to launch some more events. We're talking about a Born to Adapt virtual run club. To where our call to action is basically invite someone that doesn't look like you to your next group run. And that's how we're going to change the run community. Invite people that are different than you.
Yeah, that's amazing, Zach. So, on behalf of myself and Jason, we just want to thank you all for listening to this episode of Enduring Minds with Zach Friedley. And we're one of 8 other incredible shows on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. And until next time, let's continue going the distance and breaking the silence together. Thanks so much, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.